My wife Laura woke me up at 4:23 in the morning, screaming that she was in labor. "Diego, it's coming. The baby's coming," she gasped. I jumped out of bed. After 9 months of waiting for this moment, it had finally arrived. I grabbed the bag we'd packed weeks ago, and we ran to the car. I drove from our house in Coyoacan to San Jose Hospital like a maniac, running 3 red lights while Laura squeezed my hand, so hard it almost broke my fingers. "Relax, my love," I told her. "In a few hours we'll meet our daughter, Valentina." We arrived at the hospital at 4:50 in the morning. The nurses were already waiting for us because Laura had called from the road. They took her straight to the delivery room. Since I'm a surgeon and work at that same hospital, though in the trauma department, I know almost all the staff. Dr. Hernandez, head of gynecology and my friend since college, was the one who attended to Laura. She assured me that everything was perfect, with 7 centimeters of dilation. At that moment, I felt like the happiest man in the world, imagining our new life as a family. At 6:30 in the morning, Dr. Hernandez let me into the delivery room. Laura was drenched in sweat and exhausted, but she was smiling. I kissed her forehead and she nodded, ready to meet our baby. The labor was long, a full 8 hours of effort. I was by her side the entire time, holding her hand and offering words of encouragement. Finally, at 2:47 in the afternoon, I heard the most beautiful cry I had ever heard. "It's a beautiful baby girl," Dr. Hernandez announced, confirming that she was perfectly healthy, weighing 3.2 kilograms. The nurse quickly cleaned the baby and came to me. As I reached out to hold her for the first time, the world stopped, but not in the way I expected. The baby had dark brown skin, almost coffee-colored, and her hair was completely black and curled in tight little spirals. Her features were markedly different from ours. Laura and I are white, very white. She has naturally blonde hair and green eyes, while I have light brown hair and blue eyes. Our entire family lineage is fair-skinned. I felt my legs go weak. I glanced at the nurse, who uncomfortably avoided my gaze. Then I looked at Dr. Hernandez, whose expression was a mixture of pity and shock. When I saw Laura, I found her pale, staring at the baby with wide eyes. "It's normal," Laura said, her voice breaking. "Babies are sometimes born like this and then change color. Right, doctor?" There was a terrible silence in the room. As a doctor, I know perfectly well that genetics doesn't work that way. It's biologically impossible for 2 parents with our features to have a daughter with those characteristics. I demanded to speak with Laura alone. The doctor took the baby for routine checkups, and the staff quickly left the room. I approached the bed and asked her directly if the baby was mine. After a silence that seemed like an eternity, she whispered an almost imperceptible no. I slumped into a chair. When I pressed her, Laura burst into tears and confessed the truth. That month she had been involved with 6 different men and didn't know who the father was. She had planned to hide it from me, hoping the baby would resemble her so no one would realize the deception. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. 9 months of hope, of buying the crib, the clothes, and the toys, of telling my family they were going to be grandparents. It was all a lie. I left the room and found Dr. Hernandez to request an emergency DNA test and have Laura's confession documented in her file. I needed legal proof of the divorce and to protect myself from paternity fraud. She nodded, confirming that the results would be ready in 72 hours. Although we both knew it was just a legal formality, given the physical evidence, I went down to the hospital terrace and cried like I hadn't in years. I cried for the life I thought I'd have and for the systematic betrayal of the woman I loved. Meanwhile, my phone kept buzzing with messages from my mother and siblings asking when they could come meet their granddaughter. There were 40 people in the waiting room with balloons and flowers for a celebration that had turned into a funeral for my marriage. Suddenly, I saw Laura's parents and her younger sister get off the elevator, laden with gifts. I stood up, and my expression must have been terrifying because they stopped dead in their tracks. I told them the truth bluntly. The baby isn't mine. Laura cheated on me with 6 men and doesn't know who the father is. Her mother's face went white, and the balloons fell from her hands. I suggested they go inside to see the baby, so they could understand why there was no doubt. Laura's father froze while her sister began to sob with shame. I couldn't take it anymore. I needed air and to get out of that place that now represented nothing but pain. Shortly after, Dr. Hernandez urgently sought me out. Laura's family was causing a scene in the room, yelling at her and confronting her about the public humiliation. Laura, for her part, had become hysterical, retracting her confession and shouting that the baby was indeed mine, that the doctors had made a mistake. She looked at me pleadingly,